Welcome into episode 142 of The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. I'm Ken Ray.
And I'm August Rometer.
A fast food security breach, killing off passwords, and Apple's babysitting the babysitters. Please pull around for this edition of The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. A bit of unfun insecurity with your fast food, though we may be able to supersize that by the time we're done. Threat Post says one of the most popular U.S. drive-thru restaurants has been hit with a data breach due to POS malware. POS in this case stands for point of sale, though what you might have been thinking is a fine name for it too. The piece says the popular Checkers and Rally's drive-thru restaurant chain was attacked by point-of-sale malware, impacting 15% of its stores across the U.S. While 15% doesn't sound terrible, the issue affected 102 stores in 20 of the 28 states through which the chain runs. What are we dealing with? Well, according to Threat Post, the security incident stemmed from cybercriminals breaching Checkers' systems and installing malware on point-of-sale systems across more than 100 of its stores. The malware is designed to collect data stored on the magnetic stripe of payment cards, including cardholder name, payment card number, card verification code, and expiration date. In an advisory on its website, because, you know, Checkers and Rally's customers are spending a ton of time on their website. We all do that, don't we? Regularly visit the website of our favorite fast food place for important security information.
All the time.
Yeah. In an advisory on the website, Checkers said, "We recently became aware of a data security issue involving malware at certain Checkers and Rally's locations. After discovering the issue, we quickly engaged leading data security experts to conduct an extensive investigation and coordinated with affected restaurants and federal law enforcement authorities to address the matter." I have so many questions. Let's start with how malware could end up on point-of-sale systems.
Well, first of all, you're telling me that hamburgers aren't even safe anymore?
Hamburgers have never been safe, dude.
So fast food is both unhealthy and insecure.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Plus, the prizes in the kids' meals are just like, you know, pants now. Not pants, because that'd be kind of big. There's no room for the meal then.
The English word pants.
Exactly. Well, the British use of the term, they're crud, is what I'm saying.
Seriously, though, if I had to guess, I'm thinking it's probably a regional franchisor or group of franchisors that all ended up with the same software updates, which then got hacked either with somebody on the inside or some bad actor who somehow gained access.
Is the most likely thing, you know, something like the skimmers that we're supposed to check for, like gas stations or ATMs, things like that?
Oh, definitely. You know, what it looks like is bad guys were stealing and then likely selling credit card data. Every single credit card transaction put money in their bank, which is crazy.
Now, I got to say, I have a hard time not being snarky. After discovering the issue, we quickly engaged leading data security experts, according to the Checkers statement. I mean, the horse is out of the barn at that point.
There's so much I don't like about their public statement, and phrases like that just drive me crazy. Of course you engage security experts. That's sort of like saying, since there was a fly in the soup, we got you new soup. But the question is, where'd the fly come from? You know, tell me that. It's unfortunate that they have to put out this kind of PR drivel. But as you said, no one reads their website anyway, so maybe it just doesn't matter to them.
Now, Threat Post does say that Checkers urge customers to review their account statements and order a credit report. So I guess we're just done with companies losing our information and giving us credit reports, because that was like... I mean, I will say back around the time of the, was it Equifax? Yeah, back around the time of the Equifax issue, I don't think they were offering their service for free, but I can't remember. But to that point, we would do these stories and it would be like, and they're offering a year of credit check, or they're offering 2 years of free credit reports, or things like that. And now Checkers is like, so listen, 102 of our stores, your information was swiped from those stores, so you're probably going to want to be careful.
Yeah, you're on the hook for our mistake. Sorry about that, guys. The sad thing is most people don't think of their local burger joint as a vector for their personal data that could affect their credit. So this seems like adding insult to the people who've had their credit card information already stolen. And all I can keep thinking is, would you like fries with that?
More, bigger, maybe. I'm not sure. If you're looking for a bit of good news on this one, the piece has Verizon's data breach investigations report indicating a decline in breaches involving point-of-sale environments and card skimming operations, but they are still happening. And in some cases, they may be out there waiting to happen. Checkers says that it can now see that some data was compromised as far back as 2015, all the way through to April of 2019, though ThreatPost says there was a serious uptick in 2018, suggesting that that's when whoever was behind it was able to really start propagating its malware. Should they have known about all of this sooner?
It's so crazy to me that this has been going on for 4 years. So yes, they absolutely should have known about it sooner. And as they did their investigation, they said they found evidence that it was happening 4 years ago. I don't know why it took the bad guys so long to start harvesting real data, but Checkers should have found it a long time ago and addressed this.
So, aside from finding it earlier, what could they have done better?
In software development, there's a technique where you run what's called a hash on all of the code you've written. This hash is basically a fingerprint of your code, and you then publish both the code and the hash so that when somebody installs the code, they compare that against the hash. If they match, they know the code is unhacked. Given that we're talking about people's money here, I don't know why this checking wasn't being done when they did POS updates. I know it's a lot more complicated than I've made it out here, made it out to be here, but the technique still stands. And the IT folks at Checkers or at the regional franchise offices or at the POS software provider, they should have spotted this a lot earlier. Another one of the main problems that Checkers continues to use card swipes versus the chip insert method of approving a credit card transaction. The chip method, which is known as EMV, it's a pain in the backside. I hate that, where you have to stick your card in and all that. But it provides a lot more security than card swipes. Chip transactions would likely not have been compromised. So all of the stripe swipes are the ones that are in trouble. I know a large regional coffee shop chain here that continues to use the swipe method. At the cash register, they have a sign over the insert area saying swipe only. And if I were a bad guy, I'd be looking at them as a target.
As I said before, the incident impacted 102 Checkers stores across 20 states, which were all exposed at varying dates, including as early as December 2015 to as recently as April 2019. A full list of the impacted stores is actually on Checkers' data breach security advisory page. And to their credit, as of this recording, the link to that security advisory page is right on the restaurant's landing page. So if you go to their website, checkers.com, and look in the upper right corner, it's right there. I think it says something like news of our recent security breach or something along those lines. So there is so much for which you can fault them. But props to them for at least not burying it in their website. It's right there, for all the times you go to your favorite burger joint's website. An old best practice for passwords has been shown the door. According to a piece from TechCrunch, beginning in May of this year, Microsoft killed password expiration policies in their Windows 10 security baseline. Now, I think I know the answer to this, but what is the Windows 10 security baseline?
The Microsoft security baseline is a set of recommended settings and practices designed to keep systems safe across a wide range of business types, from e-commerce to medical systems. It basically points IT administrators to ways to protect the system and keep it safe.
So when we talk weekly about best practices for consumers or at sort of the general user level, this would be Microsoft saying, here's what we're suggesting for best practices for people who actually deal with implementation, security, things like that. Exactly.
And, what their best practices are and what, say, the man on the street's best practices are often two different things, but can be similar or overlap.
Now, here's why we're talking about this. We talk a lot about password security and best practices around passwords. We've always heard that changing your password, see, that's what I started to write earlier. We've always heard that changing your password regularly is a good idea, but I don't think we've actually heard that changing your password is important. We've just always had to do it, right? You go to log into a site and it says, oh, your password hasn't been changed in 6 months. Let's do that now, or 3 months or a year or however long. What is the new thinking here?
Yeah, that's one of the things that always drove me crazy about password policies is just the expiration policy. After so many days, 30, 60, 90, you have to change your password. This never really made sense to me because it reinforced behavior like writing your passwords on a Post-it and leaving it on your desk for everyone to see. I'm all for a unique and complex password, but if you keep making people change it, sooner or later, it ends up being Fred 1, then Fred 2, then Fred 3 because they can't remember it. So the expiration date, I think, worked against good password security. The thing to keep in mind is people are almost always the weak point when it comes to accessing a system. And when you have a Post-it note on your desk, it makes it super easy to log in as you and gain your access. The new guidelines from Microsoft recognize this. They still recommend a strong, unique password, but they don't recommend that you have to change it once a month, or I think 42 days was their number before. I still think we're talking about the end of passwords as we know it. We just haven't gotten there yet. And I do think that's a good thing because passwords, they're just problematic in terms of accessing a system.
I'm sorry, when you say you think we're nearing the end of passwords, what would you replace them with? Are you thinking like 2FA, biometrics, things like that?
Exactly. And, you would let the hardware, come up with very long, strong keys instead of you typing, Bob's dog or whatever your password is.
But replacing all of the O's with zeros because you're clever.
Exactly.
I was actually going to ask you to go over some password best practices, although the TechCrunch piece with which we started does that for us. Their suggestions: use a password manager like LastPass or 1Password, and use two-factor authentication whenever possible. Yes, they say even SMS two-factor authentication because it's still better than one-factor authentication. Is there anything else that you would add?
Well, we've always talked about having a strong password. And if you are using a password manager, that will provide that strong password for you. It will provide you a unique password. And both of those are super important. I've said before that your password shouldn't be something you can pronounce. We actually got some feedback email about that showing how that's not necessarily true. And the email pointed to an XKCD comic about exactly that. XKCD says that, if you have a long string of words separated by hyphens, it's cryptographically harder to crack than a shorter password of random characters. And I totally agree with that. It's all true. But, because you knew that was coming. Many systems don't allow all lower or all uppercase words, so now your password is mixed case, which is harder to remember. Many systems require odd symbols like $ and exclamation points in the password, so you can't just separate with a hyphen. And even if a system allows all of this, you have to remember 5 or more words separated by a hyphen. And if you log into 5 different systems per day, that's 25 or more words that you have to remember. So the bottom line, stick to a password manager. It will make your life so much easier.
I got to say, I love the way the TechCrunch piece ends. It says, perfect security doesn't exist. World-class security is hard, but decent security is generally quite accessible if you faithfully follow some basic rules. In order to do so, it's best to keep those rules to a minimum and get rid of the ones that don't make sense. Password expiration is one of those. Goodbye to it, and good riddance. We'll round out the day revisiting a story from last week in just a moment, but first a word about MacScan 3 from Secure Mac. Digital safety is about a lot of things. Being smart about passwords, like we were just talking about, taking care of, the stuff that you download, making sure it's actually safe, using a VPN on public Wi-Fi. There are lots of things you can do to keep yourself safe. High on that list, running good security software, like MacScan 3. MacScan 3 is a great defense against malicious software attacks aimed at your Mac. It's developed by Secure Mac, trusted names in computer security and developers of exceptional security software for the Mac for well over a decade. MacScan 3 detects and removes Mac malware, catches keyloggers, removes tracking cookies, and provides full-range or targeted scanning, all without crowding up your hard drive or slowing down your computer. Stay safer with MacScan 3 from Secure Mac. Sign up for a free 30-day trial today at securemac.com/MacScan. That's MacScan 3 by Secure Mac. Your 30-day free trial is waiting at securemac.com/MacScan. We'll end the day following up on a story we brought you last week. One of the things we heard around WWDC was that Apple was going to open mobile device management access, or MDM access, to child protection apps seen by many to compete with Apple's own parental controls and screen time. Now, the question August and I had was, how's Apple going to police this? The answer? The company is leaving itself a little room to take a peek. It used to be that apps deployed under Apple's enterprise program were between the enterprise program member company and the people to whom the apps were deployed. But that's how we got Facebook and Google gathering lots of information that they'd have otherwise never had access to. Not to mention certificates that were being used to sidestep Apple Store bans on spyware, gambling, and other questionable kinds of software, according to a piece from The Verge. And so, as I say, Apple's left itself a little bit of room to take a peek. Just before WWDC, iOS developer Steve Moser found a change in Apple's documentation. According to The Verge, the new terms and conditions for developers partnering with the App Store will face much more proactive vetting, including individual review of apps deployed under the certificate. If Apple finds a particular app is not an appropriate use, the developer will be required to withdraw the app on request. You understand and agree that Apple reserves the right to review and approve or reject any internal use application that you would like to deploy at any time during the term of this agreement, reads a new section of the terms and conditions for the App Store. If requested by Apple, you agree to fully cooperate with Apple and promptly provide such internal use application to Apple for such review. So I'm glad we have an answer now, but I'm not sure I like the answer. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Well, I like it. I wish they could be doing more, but I do like it, especially given the workarounds we've seen from various companies. Apple's basically saying, we're probably not going to review every enterprise app, but if we read about you in the news, we absolutely reserve the right to review it, and you must comply.
You see, I can't remember, have you used Apple's enterprise program and MDM solutions in any of the organizations that you've worked with before?
Yeah, and one of the companies I worked for, we distributed an app internally to all our contract employees. It actually was a really great program. It allowed us to iterate faster because we didn't need to go through the approval process. And because they were all our own employees, we weren't trying to do anything nefarious. It was actually a great way to give all of them an app to use on their phone.
So then how comfortable or uncomfortable would this have made you, if this had been the way it was going at the time that you were deploying that?
We were super clean, so this would not have bothered me at all. I've never been one to go up against Apple mostly because I know that I will always lose. It's not David versus Goliath. It's, Goliath is just going to stomp on you if you go up against Apple. So I would never try and do that. I value my developer license way too much. And so we never did anything that could even, get a sniff test fail. So this wouldn't have worried me at all.
You got to figure there's going to be something to trigger this, though. I mean, like you said earlier, if we read about you in the news, I mean, what do you suppose might get Apple to go, I think we need to pry a tiny bit?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is that most companies are doing the right thing. Just like we did at my company, we are doing the right thing. And what you don't want to do is have some app reviewer have access to your company data. So Apple is trying to walk that fine line where they don't want to see company data. So they're not going to review every single app, but it is going to be if they see things in the news cycle or the word on the street is that such and such company is doing this, they're going to look into it. I've said before that they can't think of everything a company would do, so they just need to pay attention and investigate when they need to. Do I want them to do more? Sure. But I can't think of what that would be. I really don't, unless they completely revise the enterprise program.
The Verge says it is unclear how aggressively Apple will use its new powers, but it's the most concrete response to enterprise deployments that we've seen so far. In other words, to be continued.
Bum, bum, bum.
Nice. Hey, if you're looking for more security news and how-tos, the place to look is securemac.com/checklist. There you'll find notes for this show, for the shows that we've done before, and all the shows ahead, once they are actually shows that we've done before. securemac.com/checklist. If you have a question you'd like to ask or a topic you'd like to hear us hit, our email address is checklist@securemac.com. The address again is checklist@securemac.com. And if you can't remember that, please do remember this. You're listening to The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. And we'll talk to you next week.